Hey beautiful people, what is up and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jamila and I love all things beauty. I love all things makeup, I love all things skincare, and I especially love sharing my tips and tricks for how to find high-end and luxury beauty products at bargain prices. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I would absolutely love if you would consider subscribing and joining the fam. Alright, so I have a very fun collab video for you guys today. I'm so excited because I'm going to be collabing with none other than Millie from Bad to the Brow. Hey, yeah. Now if you don't know, where have you been, let me let you know. So Millie is the queen of multi-chrome eyeshadow. She loves everything sparkly, super shifty, you know, super multi-chrome. Like, she's one of the channels that I go to when I want to understand what is there in the indie market, specifically when it comes to multi-chromes. She does such an amazing job at, you know, being very thoughtful about how she presents the multi-chromes and thinking about where there are dupes. She has so many comparison videos. Like, I remember when I was really thinking about getting into single shadows, I was very much like, okay, but they all kind of sell the same thing. Which brand is better? And she has like playlists upon playlists of just comparisons across different brands, which I have found to be particularly helpful. And she goes into so much detail about sort of the specific differences of each brand and whether or not they're like more sparkly, more shifty, if it's a black base, if it's sheer, if it's iridescent. And that's how I learned about multi-chromes. And that's how I really got a chance to learn about these indie shades, because they're expensive, y'all. They are expensive. So when it comes to, you know, diving into buying singles, especially those sort of multi-chrome singles, I wanted to make sure I was making purchases that was smart, because honestly, once you start adding up them individual shades, it gets real expensive. So she's always been sort of that educator for me when I need to figure out where do I go in this multi-chrome market. And other than that, her looks are bomb.com. Like, she has such artistry with the way in which she puts looks together that is just phenomenal. So she's one of the people that I have really grown to love just kind of watching on this platform. So I'm really excited that I get to collab with her today. We were chatting on Instagram and we decided that we wanted to talk about, you know, 5 products that we regret buying, because Lord knows mistakes are often made in this industry. And then 5 products that we regret not buying. You know, the ones that got away, the ones that, you know, stole our hearts and we still dream about. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. And if you are joining me from Millie's channel, welcome. Hey, I hope you guys enjoy the content. Please don't forget to subscribe on the way out if you did. If not, still love you. Thanks for watching anyway. As I said in my intro, on my platform, I really like to talk about how to get all this good, expensive, indie, mainstream, you know, luxury makeup at the best prices. Like, I love a good sale and I don't believe in paying full price for makeup. So I try to share the tips that I've learned along my sort of makeup journey so that you and everybody else doesn't have to pay full price for makeup. Now, that being said, now that we know each other a little bit, now that we are acquainted, let's dive into today's video. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the products that I regret buying. There were so many. It was actually kind of hard to try to whittle this down to 5. I was like, ooh, oh, look at all these poor decisions. Anyways, let's dive in. So the first product that came to mind immediately without fail for me was the Too Faced Cinnamon Swirl palette. This is still in its box because it's in pristine condition. Mind you, this came out in fall of 2021 and it's almost fall of 2022. Like, I have had this palette for about a year, going on close to almost a year, and have not touched this yet. And I should not have bought this. Now that I'm sitting here reflecting on it. So this is the Cinnamon Swirl palette. It is a beautiful palette, don't get me wrong, but Too Faced has made this palette 12 times over. And in all reality, this is a neutral palette with a pop of purple. Like, I didn't need this. Not to mention, I have 2 other of the Tin Pan palettes, which are the exact same thing. I promise you the color story doesn't change. So the fact that I went out and bought this holiday palette, knowing good and well that I have this pretty much in the others that I've bought, it was such a waste of money. Granted, I did get this at 50% off because very often these don't sell out and then they go on sale for 50% off. Plus, they oftentimes end up at the cosmetics company store, which you know I like to talk about all the time here. And when things end up at the CCO, they get real discounted. So this you could get for technically like $10 at a CCO if they have a 6 for $60 sale. So I am like mad that I bought this at all, because I could have saved my little $25, because at 50% off it was like $24.50. I could have saved my coin. I didn't need this. I haven't used it. Chances of me reaching for this anytime soon are like dwindling every day, because I have so much other palettes that I need to get through. And this is at the bottom of my bottom list. Just stick with me there. It is not even on my radar. And every time I think about it, I just get mad, because I'm like, why did I buy this? I didn't need this. Now, this is definitely something I might just gift to somebody, because, you know, if you're not getting into makeup and you want to try some more neutral, easy to work with shades, I think this is good. But for me, this was a waste of money. Anyways, you win some, you lose some, right? The second product that I want to talk about is another eyeshadow, and it is a Mcgrath Quad. Now, if you didn't know, Patricia is my favorite eyeshadow brand of all time. I love her. I talk a lot of smack about her, but at the end of the day, I stand for Patricia. So I have bought pretty much everything I could get my hands on, including the Fleur Fantasia Quad, which was such a big mistake. Now, packaging, everything 10 out of 10. It comes in her real luxe, you know, lacquered packaging. But this is what the color story is. It is extremely boring, and it is extremely light. Now, I am of a medium deep complexion. I'm very yellow, very golden, and you can see that this is pretty pastel, and I don't wear these colors. Like, there's no deepening shade here, so there's no depth to this palette ever. And granted, you don't have to have a palette that has depth. You can keep things nice and light and airy, but I didn't want this. I really didn't want this. I honestly bought this because this was a part of her holiday trio, and I was like, oh, well, if I'm buying the two, then I might as well get all three. You see where my logic was going? Then it didn't make any sense. Yeah. I never used this. I've used this once. I put this in my basket of shame, and I forced myself to use it because I'm like, okay, I at least need to use it once. I used it once, have never reached for this again. I'm pretty sure this ranks at the bottom of my quad ranking. If you haven't already seen that, I'll link it down below, but I did rank all of my Mcgrath quads, and I'm pretty sure this was the last one just because I don't use it. It's so light. It's so light. It's so pastel. It's just not something that I reach for ever, and I need some depth. I need some oomph. Even the shades in here, it's like one matte, two more satin shades, and then one true like shimmer, metallic shimmer, and unnecessary. And granted, her quads are not cheap. I'm pretty sure this was like $65, so an even bigger waste of money than the Too Faced palette. Now, stepping away from eyeshadow for a little bit, the next product number 3 that I want to talk about is the Charlotte Tilbury Nude Gasm Face Palette. Now, this is another one where packaging is 10 out of 10. It's very cute. You got the gold, everything going on. And then when you open it up, you see all of the embossing in here. It's absolutely stunning. Really, really beautiful. But this was real expensive and real bad for me. Here's the thing. Charlotte likes to release products for one skin tone, and it's usually not my skin tone. So when this came out, there was no deep option. It was this and this alone. You can already pretty much see this contour shade is just gonna look like ash on me. It's gonna look like I rose from the dead. This bronzer is also going to make me look casket ready, because this ain't bronzing me. So considering that this was in, I want to say like the $65, $75 range, I think it was $75, and 2 out of these 4 shades don't work for me, this was a waste of money. I regret buying this so much because I cannot use half of the palette, and then the 2 top shades, which are basically highlighters, definitely do not equate to being worth $75. So while this is beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's just not a functional palette for me. And you know what? I should have known that going into it. I think I just got caught up in it, and I was like, ooh, great, I want to buy this. But the reality is, this is not a palette for people of deeper skin tones, and Charlotte needed to release more than one option. Just saying. Okay, so product number 4 that I want to talk about, I actually can't find it, which probably says a lot. So I'll just insert a picture. And it is this Chanel blush. Oh, it's because I sold it. That's why I can't find. Did I sell both of them? I think I sold both of them. I did sell both. I did sell both of them. So it's the Chanel blush. So I purchased this year, I want to say in early February. These blushes retailed for like $60, $65. And I used them like twice-ish. So they were real expensive and honestly not that great. The deeper version of the blush was, it showed up on me, but it took a little bit of work and it took a lot of time to build. And I get it, Chanel is definitely more of a lighter, everyday, not super va-va voom type of brand. So I get it, it's not meant to be like pigment right in your face. But then the lighter shade was like a blush topper, if that. It was real light on me, barely showed up. And once I started building, it started looking a little ashy. So it definitely was not the best purchase in my book. Like, I don't know. I feel like Chanel is a brand where it can be real finicky. Like, some things work, some things don't. They're also not known for having the best shade range as well. So while, you know, those blushes looked a lot more pigmented in the pan, once on the face, it was just like doing too much. And now that I'm like remembering, I did put both of those on my Mcgrath because I realized I wasn't using them, and having paid like $60 something for them, having them just sit in my drawer just did not make sense. So I was just like, okay, y'all gotta go to a better home than this, because this is just a waste of time and space, and I'd rather somebody who could use it gets it than it just sit here and like spoil. And then the last regret that I have for you guys, it's kind of a collection. So it is the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop palettes. Now, when this first came out, I really wanted this, and I decided not to buy it. It sold out, then it came back again, and I still didn't buy it for some reason. And you know what? I should have listened to myself when I didn't buy it. And then it ended up in TJ Maxx. And TJ Maxx is a little bit of my weakness, I'm not gonna lie. So when it ended up in TJ Maxx, it was $7.99 a piece. Now, granted, the original price of these were $18 each. So I was like, ooh, $7.99, and I bought all that I could find. So I have pretty much the entire collection except for one. Now, the reason why this is a regret is because I don't use these. I've used one palette out of the collection, and that is the green one, the pistachio one, and that's the only one. And the reason why I don't use these is because they're monochromatic palettes. Like, it's just one color, so you're gonna get one look. Like, there's only so much you can do with a palette when everything is that same color. Especially like, for example, this is a blue palette, right? Beautiful blue palette. I'm either gonna get a light blue look or a dark blue look, or like a medium blue look. Like, there's nothing else. No variation, nothing. So when I think about the way in which I like to do my makeup, like, it's very rare that I want to do a monochromatic look. And usually if I'm doing a monochromatic look, it's a neutral look. It's not a monochromatic colorful look. Whenever I'm playing color, I like to use at least 2 different color shimmers. So the fact that these are all monochromatic palettes, you know, that was the blue one. Let me show you guys the cherry on top, which is the red, which kind of looks like very orange in some ways. So you can get red or pink. So like, because of how monochromatic these palettes are, they really don't function in the way I like to apply makeup. Now, I'm pretty sure I got caught up in the fact that it was cheap. It was TJ Maxx. You know, I heard the quality on this was bomb.com. And, you know, it definitely looks really pretty. And they have my favorite shades. It's just that the shades are by itself. I wonder if these are magnetic. If these are magnetic, I might do a little bit of rearranging so I can create some palettes that actually make sense. Because I would love to like just plop out one shade from here and put it into there. I think that would be a great idea. So I'm gonna see if these are magnetic and I can plop things out and move things around. Because then things might be interesting. Okay, now for the second part of this video, we're gonna talk about the 5 makeup products that I regret not buying. So these are the things that I lust for, that I dream about, that I don't have in my collection. So I'm going to scooch over to the side a little bit so I can insert some photos. And let's just talk about it, shall we? So the first product that I want to talk about is from Melt Cosmetics. And this is specifically the blue-green palette from their Beetlejuice collection. Now, when it comes to Melt Cosmetics, I was pretty late to the game. I had very little interest in trying the brand, if I'm being honest, and that's because I had watched so many videos that talked about how inconsistent the palettes were, how folks didn't like the formula, things were too deep, and I don't know why I let that get into my head. So I was always really hesitant to buy from the brand because, you know, I'd heard such horror stories, plus it was pretty expensive, still is pretty expensive. So when it comes to Melt, you know, I'd always been like, maybe not. And they had this Beetlejuice collection that, you know, there were 2 sides. There was like the purple green one and then like a red grayish one, And the purple green, so beautiful. Like, it looked so vibrant. I saw so many people doing looks with it, and it was just like perfection. And the thing about Melt is that they like to discontinue palettes like with a quickness. So it was there one minute, gone the next, and I never got it, and I feel really sad about that. But yeah, it is what it is. It's okay, it's fine, I'll be okay. I have more than enough eyeshadow, so I'll be a-okay. But that is one that I do look at old videos sometimes and just be like, damn, imagine what could have been. Anyways, moving along to product number 2, I want to talk about the ABH Prism palette. Now, ABH is one of those brands that it was one of the first brands that I got into. You know, like when I first started makeup, it was definitely more mainstream. So it was like the Too Faced, the Tarte, the ABH. And I don't know why I never got the Prism palette. I have no idea. It's such a beautiful color story. And the truth is that Anastasia has a real solid formula. Like, I've gone back to some of my old ABH palettes, and they're actually pretty darn good. Like, the mattes are really blendable, the shimmers are really nice, and for the most part they were pretty consistent. I think it was just like, you know, color stories where it was like, wasn't feeling this, and some of them have pressed glitters I don't really care for, but as overall they have pretty solid consistent formulas that were just top notch. And the Prism palette, that color story, stunning. I have definitely gone on Poshmark and Mercari and tried to see if I can find it, but people be trying to charge way too much, and I am not about it. I'm not paying that much for a palette that's several years old at this point, but it is one that I am very sad that I don't have in my collection. You know, maybe she'll bring it back, maybe, I don't know. I doubt it, but that one is a nice one. Okay, palette number 3, and all of my regrets are eyeshadow palettes, which speaks volumes, because for the most part, when it comes to like other makeup, I'm fine. Like, usually they're not discontinued really quickly, and if I really want it, I'll eventually end up buying it. But eyeshadow palettes are the ones that, you know, really hurt, and sometimes they just go away and just never come back. So all of my regrets are eyeshadow. So palette number 3 that I want to talk about is the Artist Couture Supreme Nudes palette. Now, this one I believe is still available. I just haven't bought it yet, and I don't know why. It's like something's holding me back. You know what? I do know why. It's because I've never seen it go on like a good sale. So this was on my wish list for Black Friday last year, and Artist Couture, I don't feel like I've ever seen them do any real sales. And by real sales, I mean anything like above 20%. I don't even know if I've ever seen them do 20%. So for me, personally, it usually takes me about a 30% discount to get excited. So whenever I see palettes that I really like and they don't go on sale, I'm just kind of like, I'll wait. You know, it'll go on sale eventually. And I think for Black Friday, it was like maybe 10, maybe 15% off. And then at best, I could get it for 20% off during the Sephora VIB sale. But it is like a $40-something palette, so I would like to see at least 30% off before I buy it. Now, it's definitely one I've heard a lot of people rave about. The color story is beautiful. Like, it has those sort of warm neutrals that I like, plus those greens that look really well with those like warm yellowy shades. Like, it's a color story that I would fall in, well, I have fallen in love with, and I would get a ton of use out of. But I just need a bigger discount for me to be like, okay, add to cart, proceed with checkout. Like, I just need something a little bit more. But as far as I know, it is a permanent palette, so one day, maybe, we'll see. I shall keep hoping. Anyways, palette number 4 that I want to talk about is a discontinued palette that I didn't know about until after I bought the new one. So I'm talking about the Byredo Prismatic or Prismic, one of those words, palette. Now, I didn't really know about Byredo. I never really checked for Byredo. And then they brought out their Flora Kalahari palette, which, stunning. Formula is 10 out of 10. And then I really started thinking about Byredo. Now, their little palettes that look like shells, those are already pretty expensive. So I never really checked for them. But those big limited edition ones like Flora Kalahari, which is somewhere here. It's somewhere here in this mess of palettes around me. But yeah, so that big Flora Kalahari one, I think retailed for like $88. And the Prismic one was the previous limited edition version of it. Same size, same amount of shades, which I think was 18 shades. Except it was colorful, which I was really excited about, and which makes it even sadder. Because brands like Byredo and Chanel and some of these like luxury brands, even like Tom Ford, they oftentimes don't do a lot of color. And I don't know if part of it is because they are catering to an older customer base that doesn't like anything super bright or, you know, all of that. But this one was real bright. It was real summery. It was real spring. It was just color. And I have never really been able to see that level of color in that kind of softer formula. And by that I mean that the Byredo formula reminds me a lot of like Natasha Denona Zendo or Chanel or Tom Ford, where the shimmers are very, very satin-like, and they're not super high sparkly, high shine. That's what I felt when I tried the Flora Kalahari palette. So I really think that the Prismic one, or Prismatic, whatever it's called, would have had that same formula, which would have been nice to have like a really colorful palette in that formula. So it's kind of sad. I've seen it like being sold on Mercari for like $120 something. Like I saw one sell for $199. Couldn't be me. Like maybe $100 because the original price is like $88, but not $200. No. And then the last palette, the 5th palette that I regret not buying. This is gonna surprise you all. It's the e.l.f. Retro Paradise palette. Yeah. If you couldn't already tell, here on my channel, I am very much into luxury, high-end indie makeup. Don't do a lot of drugstore, but this e.l.f. palette, I don't know. Something about that one called to me so much. I remember when it released and I was like not really checking for it. And it was in Target. That's the whole thing about it. It was in Target. And I should have just bought it when I saw it in Target. Because when I saw it, I was like, that's real pretty. And this was coming off of the heels of their little bite-sized palettes, which has a really good formula. So I was really excited because I'm like, okay, if they have the same formula of the bite-sized palettes in this little retro palette, it's gonna be great, right? And then I didn't buy it, and then it sold out everywhere. And I think it was selling on Mercari for like a pretty penny, and I'm not paying for drugstore more than drugstore's worth. Like, I might be willing to spend a little extra for a Pat McGrath palette that I missed, Charlotte Tilbury, you know, actually, no, not Charlotte, but Pat McGrath, Natasha Denona. I'll pay a little extra, but for e.l.f., nah. I'm alright. So even though I'm a little sad that I missed out on that e.l.f. palette, it is definitely one that, you know, I still regret not buying, because it wouldn't have been that expensive. I don't know why I was so hesitant to buy it, because, you know, Patricia comes out with a $120 something palette, and I'm like, take my money. But e.l.f. has the little $12 palette, and I'm like, ooh, it's $12. Do I really? Yeah, I don't know why I was so hesitant, but that's what it was. Anyways, that was the 5 products that I regret not buying. Let me scooch back into the middle and we can chit chat again. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the 5 products that I regret buying and the 5 products that I regret not buying. I want to know down in the comments below what is like the 1 product that you regret buying and the 1 product you regret not buying. So please leave that down in the comments. I am now about to go and head over to Millie's channel to see what she had to say, because I'm very interested to see, you know, what products she has in her collection and, you know, decided to skip on or decided or has major regrets on. So I'm really excited. If you haven't already done so, make sure you head over there, let her know that I sent you, send her some love, you know, big hearts, all of that goodness. Now, if you like this video, like I said, make sure you leave a comment down below. If you haven't already done so, subscribe, join the family. We love to have you back, and here it's just a good time. It is a vibe, a whole vibe. So go ahead and subscribe if you want to see more. Share with a friend too if you think they'll like the content, you know. Bring your people to bring their people. So that's it from me, guys. As always, thank you so very much for rocking with me, for hanging with me. This was such a good time. A huge thank you for Millie for doing this collab with me. Absolutely amazing content creator, and I definitely recommend everyone go follow, like, subscribe, you know, the whole deal. As always, I love you guys. Thank you so very much, and I'll catch you in my next one. Bye.